Welcome to this guide on how to make the companion Socialite. A character build based on actively using your companions in your playthrough of the Outer Worlds. In this guide I intend to show you how you can create a character that stands back from the action and leaves the dirty work in the hands of your companions. This is a build that should be very suitable for playing through the game on your first playthrough, as it enables you to experience the companions' bantering, and it also encourages focusing on the companion side quests. While you need to focus skill points into the leadership skill tree, this does leave you with quite a bit of skill points that you can then use for non-combat skills like the dialogue, stealth, and tech tree skills. At the beginning of the game, this build is going to be a bit difficult to use for lockpicking, as that skill will be left at a rather low starting offset, meaning that you will need more mag picks to pick a lock, but that shouldn't take many levels to remedy. Also, you can choose companions that gives you bonuses to these skills, which I will come back to later on in the guide. For your own personal combat, I recommend that you use long guns and stealth while letting your companions do the actual combat. There is some synergy involved with you killing enemies that give bonuses for your companions through perks, which I will get back to later on in the guide. As you may have noticed, I am using the character again that I originally played through the game with as an example of how this build performs in combat, and I am currently on Scylla. The Mega Primals here caused me a great deal of pain and suffering when I originally visited Scylla in my playthrough, but then again, I wasn't playing an optimized build at all back then. So let's see how the companions fare against the Primals while I just sit back and let them do the dirty work. Of course, I will use the companion special abilities, so there is some interaction required on the player's end, but you don't really need to go into combat at all if you feel like just letting the companions do the fighting. Let's head on up here and go into stealth, and there should be a Mega Primal there. Now, let's press C. Felix does that, and then B, and Sam does that. And that's a dead Mega Primal very soon. Of course, they do hide and stuff like that. But yeah, there you go. As you can see, that was pretty efficient, quick, and didn't really require much interaction from me, except I had to press 2 buttons. So let's take a look at the skills and the perks that I've chosen, and of course why I have chosen those skills. I'll take off that armor quickly. Okay. Again, this is the original character I played through the game with, so these are not the attributes that I recommend, neither the aptitude that I recommend for this build, but we'll get back to that as well. Let's start with the most important skill tree first, which is leadership. As you can see, I have janked both of these skills up to 100 points. 100 inspiration gives us 200% companion damage bonus, which is substantial. In addition, the skill unlocks special attacks at 20, which is the C and V button as they are mapped on my keyboard. They get additional armor at 40. They get additional crit chance for 5 seconds that affect everyone in the party at 80. And there is also a 20% reduction to their companion ability cooldown on 100. Finally, this unlock at skill level 60, which doubles their bonus that they give to your player skills, is a very important part of this build. Furthermore, we have 100 points in determination, which from the offset gives us plus 1001 companion health. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be 1000 or if I have some kind of adjustment that is that additional little 1 hit point there, but no matter. And the skill unlocks in this tree gives us the ability to heal our companions with 55% of the total healing done to our own character when we use our medical inhaler through the unlocks at 20 and then again at 60, so 30% here and 25% here. At 40, the companions get an additional 20% critical damage, and at 80, we get the handy ability, which hopefully you won't need often, that when a companion is downed in a fight, the other companion and yourself will get plus 50% armor rating and plus 50% damage, both for 10 seconds. And then finally, at 100 points, we get a self-heal for the companions, where they heal 50% of their health when they kill an enemy, which is also a very important part of this build. As for the other skill trees, the only real requirement that I would say that you should get is some kind of basic weapon skill up to 20. You could play this build melee if you want, but I strongly recommend that you go the range route, as you're really not going to be able to withstand much damage personally. I've chosen to put some skill points into the ranged weapon tree, as you can see, but you should experiment and discover what playstyle you feel is the most fun combined with this companion-focused build. If you do choose to play as a melee character, I do recommend that you get the defense tree up to 20, so that you can unlock the ability to dodge and block. And since you only get Parvati at the beginning of the game, I also recommend getting basic weapon skills up to 20 as your first priority early on. That is the skill that you choose, whether it is melee or ranged. Furthermore, I have chosen to spread out my skill points in several skill trees on this character. You can see I have invested some skill points into dialogue with a focus on persuade. I've also invested into stealth with a focus on hacking and lockpicking. And finally, I've also invested some points into tech so I could get the unlocks at base skill unlock 40. I won't go into the details on each of these skills in this guide, but I will leave it up to you to decide how you want to play your character and what skills you want to spend your additional skill points in. Now let's take a look at the perks. For tier 1, the perk Deadly Demonstrations, which gives us 50% additional experience points whenever a companion kills an enemy, is very important for this build. Furthermore, the perk Precision, over here, which gives our companions an additional 50% chance to land critical hits, is also very important. As for the rest of the perks in this tier, you should pick the ones that you feel is best suited for your playstyle, although obviously avoiding Lone Wolf, as that would be a completely wasted perk point for this build. The 3 perks that I would recommend are Cheetah, to get the 20% additional sprint speed so that you can move around quicker, Pack Mule, to get an additional 50 kilograms of carry weight, and the Negotiator to get 20% better vendor prices. Then moving on to the tier 2 perks, there is really one perk in this tier that I would consider important, and that specific perk is the Tag Team perk. This gives you a 20% additional chance to reset a companion's companion ability, that is their special attack, when you're using the other companion's companion ability. However, Rolling Thunder, which gives you a 20% additional chance of resetting a companion ability whenever you kill something yourself, is worth mentioning. Pack of Pack Mules, which gives you 40 kilograms additional carry weight while having companions in your party, is worth mentioning. And finally, Wee Band of Brothers gives you a 25% additional chance to reset a companion ability whenever you score a critical hit, which also is worth mentioning. As for the other tier 2 perks, you should again pick the ones that you feel are best suited for your playstyle, but like with Lone Wolf in tier 1, you should avoid Soliloquy, as that would also be a wasted perk point. Just to give a few recommendations of worthy mentions of tier 2 perks that are useful, you could consider Snake Oil Salesman to get 20% more bits from vendors whenever you sell something to them, and Hoarder to make consumable items weigh 50% less, as you'll end up with quite a number of consumables in your inventory unless you are diligent about selling often. Also, keeping a healthy amount of consumables in your inventory is useful, particularly the healing ones, as they can be put in your medical inhaler to give the additional effects specified on the consumable whenever you use your inhaler. Finally, if you decide to play a melee build, I would strongly recommend that you pick the Harvester perk, as that will heal you for 15% of your health every time you kill an enemy, which will be very useful, as you're not really a strong combatant on your own. Then we should move on to the tier 3 perks. Again, there is only really one perk in this tier that is important for this build, and that is the Don't Go Dying on Me perk. While your companions should rarely go down, especially in the later stages of the game, having the ability to actually get them back into combat by just using your inhaler, even though the cooldown of this perk is a substantial 15 minutes, this still is a very useful panic button. However, as with the tier 2 and tier 1 perks, there are some very valuable perks to consider in tier 3 as well. Armor Master is one of those perks that I believe is generally always worth considering for any build, particularly for its 100% bonus to skill increases from your worn armor. Also, if you did choose We Band of Brothers in tier 2, you should definitely consider choosing Confidence, as the synergy between these two are quite valuable. AKA, every time you do a critical hit, you get a 25% chance to reset a companion ability, and this one gives you a guaranteed critical hit when you kill an enemy. And if you have opted to play as a melee character, the same as with the Harvester perk in tier 2, I will strongly recommend that you pick the Tit for Tat perk, as that heals you by 15% every time you inflict damage with a melee weapon. For the rest of the perks in tier 3, I again encourage you to look at them for yourself and see which ones fit your playstyle the best. Finally, also, I encourage you to remember that even though the strongest perks in general are considered to be in the tier 3, that does not mean necessarily that for your particular playstyle, a tier 1 or 2 perk could be a better choice than a tier 3 one. Now, before I go into the details about the companions, I feel it is important to remind you about the armor mods and how some of the mods give you skill bonuses. Take this armor that I have here, for instance, which I was using in my playthrough. As you can see, it has a mod installed called the Silver Tongue Kit. That mod gives me +5 to all 3 dialogue skills, and also +10 to the 2 most important skills for this build, that is, the 2 leadership skills. Remember that those bonuses that you see on the screen now are affected by me already having the tier 3 Armor Master perk. You should also remember that certain consumables will give you attribute boosts, which in turn will affect your skills. Alcoholic beverages will give you a +1 boost to your personality attributes for a short amount of time. Caffeine drinks will give you a +1 boost to your mind attributes, and sugary drinks will give you a +1 boost to your body attributes. All of these affect a number of skills, from 3 to 5 points, depending on your level in the attribute, so you should keep some of these around in case you need that little extra skill point boost for, say, hacking that very difficult terminal or lockpicking that very difficult container. So now let's travel back to the ship quickly. There we are. And in here we can take a look at the companions and what bonuses they give you. All of the companions have 3 skills that they will boost. I will not go through all of the companions, as that would take too much time. But let's have a quick look at Parvati and Vicar Max, as those are the 2 first companions you get. Parvati, as you can see, is skilled at Persuade, Lockpick, and Engineering, while Vicar Max is skilled at Intimidate, Hack, and Science. This means that, for instance, whenever you bring Parvati with you, you will get skill bonuses to Persuade, Lockpick, and Engineering, and the same goes for Vicar Max with his skills, and any of your other companions, of course. In addition, each of the companions have a perk, or rather a companion-specific perk tree on the right, as shown here, and the topmost perk here will give you a bonus to 1 skill. Parvati, as shown here, gives you an additional +10 to Engineering. And each of the 6 companions have a different bonus perk like this. Ellie gives you +10 to Medical, Felix gives you +10 to Persuade, Nyoka gives you +10 to Lie, Vicar Max gives you +10 to Hacking, and Sam gives you +10 to Intimidate. So let's go back outside the ship again and look at how this affects our stats when we bring Parvati and Vikramax with us. Okay, so as you can see, my base in Persuade is 60, but since I have Parvati, I get plus 37 from her, and in addition, plus 10 bonus support Persuade. Hacking, I have 70 base, but thanks to Vikramax and the bonus support hack, I end up with 118. Lockpick, you get the point here. So, the affected stats are substantially increased, but the perk that I also picked, which increases the companion ability bonus you get, is why my perks or skills get this high. Furthermore, while we are talking about the companions, you should build at least one of the companions you bring with you. So that means if you want to rotate around the companions, you should build several companions this way. You should build them as a tank. That means a character that can handle more punishment and also has more threat management, making them the enemies favor attacking that companion over you or your other companion. What this means is investing into the healthy perk and the boisterous perk. You can see this is more base health and this is more threat generated. And just for safe measure, you should also consider picking the second win perk in case that companion is downed during combat. And you also must remember to give the tank companions the best possible armor, and that also includes tinkering on that armor to ensure that their armor rating is as high as possible. And there we have a rundown of the important details of this character build using my original character that I played through the game with. Now, let's go create a new character so that we can go into the details on how you should build this character from the outset. Keep in mind, of course, that once you've finished character creation, the attribute choices that you've made here, they are set in stone. You can always respec your characters and your companions' skills and perks in the engineering section of the Unreliable, but these choices, the attribute choices, they are a one-time choice only, and you choose them at the very beginning of the game. For this specific build, I recommend leaving strength and dexterity at average. Intelligence, I recommend cranking up to very high, as that will affect several core skills that I find useful to have, like Persuade, Hack, but it also affects Determination, which is a core skill in the leadership skill tree. Intelligence also affects Long Guns, which is why I recommend Long Guns for the specific build that I've made here, but you should pick what you find being the most fun for you, of course. Perception, I recommend leaving that at average, and then you get to Charm, which you should also crank up to very high, as that again affects more core skills like Persuade, Hacking, but most importantly Inspiration, which is the other core skill in the leadership tree. And that of course means leaving Temperament at average too, since we are out of points. And I strongly recommend not going below average. I should mention that Charm is the important stat here, as that ensures that your companion abilities are 40% quicker on their refresh. If you want to try out a different playstyle, like say melee, you might want to keep intelligence at average or good, and instead spend those attribute points in strength and dexterity, or however you feel is best for your playstyle. Moving on to skills, I recommend picking Dialogue and Leadership. But here too I want to add that neither of these are crucial picks at the start of the game. These two picks only give you plus 10 to the skills within these two specific skill trees, and you might instead want to pick Ranged or Melee to have better damage output at the beginning of the game, or even Stealth, so that you have a higher skill at lockpicking than a mere 6 from the beginning of the game. moving on to aptitudes. The aptitudes really add such a minor bonus that it doesn't really matter what you pick. But I do tend to prefer, or I think that the ones that give a slight damage reduction is the better ones. And since N-ray damage is possibly the most annoying damage in the game, I recommend picking the Farmer Dirt aptitude to reduce incoming N-ray damage by 3%. It's not much, that's for sure, but it is better than nothing. Then move on to build your character look the way that you prefer, give them a name, and then jump into the game. Before I end this guide, I'll quickly load up a save game here. And this is a character that I named the Socialite, to let you see how my character looks at level 3, also having picked up Parvati. Now, as you can see when we remove this helmet, she's a quite dashing and charismatic young woman who gives off a strong impression of knowing exactly what her goals are. Of course, that is my very personal interpretation, so you might not entirely agree with that assessment, but that's okay. So I've picked up a TNL hunting rifle at one of the vendor machines here at the Edgewater landing pad. I've put a few skill points into ranged so that I could get long guns to 20 skill points to unlock the TTD location hit effects. I've also invested a few skill points into stealth so that I could get both sneak and lockpicking up to 20. And finally, I've just spent a few skill points in the other skill trees so I could get the 20 unlocks for certain abilities. As for Parvati, I've just let her keep her default weapons for now, and I haven't fiddled with her behaviors as of yet. However, later on you should ensure that your tank companions are set to close distance using their melee weapons, while the non-tank companions should be set to medium or far using either mixed or ranged. Also again, make sure that you don't forget to tinker on both your companions' weapons and armors to ensure that they have the best possible equipment. With this specific build, your companion's gear is actually more important than your own, so it is important that you do not forget to tinker on their gear, particularly if you play on a harder difficulty. So, there you have it. This was the Companion Socialite build for the Outer Worlds. A build that I highly recommend for your first playthrough, as it is very versatile. It gives you the opportunity to immerse yourself into the role-playing aspects of the game through dialogue skills, and in general just rock the game. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this build guide for the Outer Worlds, and I will see you all next time.